You think you know yourself, but you don't even notice what you hesitated on yesterday. There's another version of you, one that's been watching you for years, one that never forgets, never sleeps, never doubts. And according to the data, that version of you is more accurate than the one you've been building in your head your entire life. This isn't about your phone listening to you. That story is old now. This is something much stranger, much deeper. This is about identity. In 2002, a company called Axiom had already compiled 1,500 data points on nearly every American adult. Not what they searched, not what they bought, who they were. Their habits, their fears, their predictable patterns, encoded and filed away like a psychological fingerprint. That was 2002. Today, the model of you sitting inside these systems is so detailed, it has predicted divorces before couples felt anything was wrong. It has flagged depression weeks before a person broke down. It has identified illness before a single symptom appeared. It's not reading your mind. It already knows what your mind is going to do next. So here is the question this video is really asking. Not, is AI watching you? But, if a machine built from your own data knows your choices before you make them, which one of you is actually in control? Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to go somewhere most tech videos never go. Past the surveillance, past the data collection, into the question of whether the self you believe in is as free as you think it is. And we're going to start with something called your digital twin. Because right now, it already exists. You just don't know what it knows about you yet. Every time you interact with a digital system, any system, you leave something behind. Not just what you clicked, how long you paused before clicking, which direction your thumb moved first, whether you hesitated and then went back. These aren't accidents, these are signals, and every signal is a brick in the construction of something that was never supposed to exist. Engineers at MIT call it a digital twin. The term originally came from aerospace. NASA used it to model physical objects, a satellite, a rocket engine, so they could run simulations without risking the real thing. Then someone asked a different question. What if you could do the same thing with a person? Your digital twin isn't a file. It's not a profile page. It's a running simulation, a behavioral model so detailed it can be tested. If we show this person this content at this time of day, how will they respond? And the model answers, correctly, with terrifying consistency. In 2018, researchers at Stanford ran a study where they fed a neural network nothing but Facebook likes, just likes. From that alone, the model assessed personality traits more accurately than a person's own co-workers could, more accurately than their friends, more accurately than their spouse. The model didn't know these people. It had never spoken to them, never seen their faces, never been in the same room. It just watched their patterns. And patterns, it turns out, are more honest than people. Because patterns don't lie to themselves. Right now, your digital twin is built from things you'd never think to list if someone asked who you are. The time of day you check your email, the way your typing slows when you're reading something difficult, the products you return versus the ones you keep forever, the searches you delete. Even your silences have been catalogued. And here's where it stops being just fascinating and starts being genuinely unsettling. Because your digital twin isn't just a record of who you were, it's a forecast of who you're going to be. The question isn't whether this model exists. it does. The question is, what does it already know that you don't know about yourself yet? That's where the prediction engine comes in. Prediction is not new. Humans have always tried to see what's coming. Weather, markets, war. But every prediction system in history shared one fundamental flaw. It could only work with what people chose to reveal. What changed is that you stopped choosing. Not deliberately, not consciously, but the sheer volume of digital behavior you produce every single day without ever intending to became the richest dataset in human history. And these systems learned how to read it. In 2012, a statistician named Andrew Pohl was working at Target. His job was to figure out what people needed before they knew they needed it. He discovered something that would quietly change the ethics of prediction forever. Pregnant women, in the first trimester, change their shopping habits in ways they don't notice. Unscented lotion, vitamin supplements, a specific shift in grocery patterns. The algorithm noticed. Target began sending personalized coupons to women it had identified as likely pregnant, before any of them had told a single person. One father called the store furious, demanding to know why his teenage daughter was receiving baby product promotions. A few weeks later, he called back to apologize. The algorithm knew before the family did. But predicting purchases is elementary now. The systems running today are operating in completely different territory. Researchers at the University of Michigan built a model that could predict the onset of clinical depression with 87% accuracy by analyzing Instagram photo filters. Not the content of the photos, the filters, the slight desaturation, the shift toward blue tones, the decreased brightness over a period of weeks. A human looking at those photos would see nothing wrong. The machines saw everything. A team at the University of Pennsylvania went further, predicting heart disease from eye movement patterns captured through a standard phone camera. Not a medical scanner, a phone camera. And perhaps most disturbing, researchers at MIT's Media Lab built a system that could detect relationship instability. Not from messages, not from arguments recorded anywhere, from the GPS data of two people, how often they were in the same location, how that pattern was shifting, and predicted breakups an average of 3 months before they happened. 3 months. The couple didn't know. Their friends didn't know. The data knew. None of this required reading a single message. No phone calls intercepted. No private conversations accessed. Just the quiet, unguarded trail of a life being lived, interpreted by a system that has been trained on millions of lives before yours. This is the prediction engine. Not one algorithm, not one company. A distributed intelligence built from collective human behavior that gets more accurate every single day. Because every prediction it makes, correct or not, gets fed back in. The model learns from you even when it's wrong about you, which means it is always getting closer. But here's the thing about a prediction engine that has never been fully discussed in public. When it predicts what you'll do and you do it, was that your choice? Or were you just completing a calculation that was already finished? That's not a rhetorical question, because there's a feedback loop running right now that has already started answering it for you. And that loop is the most unsettling part of this entire story. There's a concept in systems theory called a feedback loop. Most people have a rough sense of it. Output becomes input. The result feeds back into the process. The cycle continues. What most people don't realize is that you are already inside one. Here's how it works in practice. The algorithm assesses your current state. Let's say mild anxiety, late on a Sunday night. Heart rate slightly elevated, scroll speed just a fraction faster than usual. It doesn't alert you. It doesn't ask if you're okay. It simply adjusts what it shows you next. Content that matches anxious minds tends to keep anxious minds engaged. So that's what arrives. You scroll longer. Your anxiety deepens slightly. The signal gets stronger. The algorithm receives confirmation. This state is productive. And the next time it detects this same pattern in your behavior, it knows exactly what to serve. You didn't choose this. You didn't even notice it. In 2014, Facebook ran an experiment on 689,000 users without their knowledge or consent. For 1 week, they altered what appeared in those users' news feeds. Half saw more negative content. Half saw more positive. The results were unambiguous. People shown negative content began posting more negatively themselves. People shown positive content posted more positively. The platform had changed their emotional state through curation alone. No conversation, no interaction. Just a quiet rearrangement of what they were allowed to see. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't an accident. It was published in a peer-reviewed journal, Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The researchers called it emotional contagion. The more honest term might be emotional engineering. But emotional manipulation is only the surface layer of the loop. The deeper mechanism is identity. Every platform you use has a version of you it prefers. Not the version that's happiest, not the most informed, the version that stays longest. And over months, over years, the content it serves begins sculpting you toward that preferred version. Your opinions narrow toward the ones it knows you engage with most. Your tastes consolidate around what you've historically clicked. Your sense of what's possible, what's normal, what's true, quietly calibrated by what you were and weren't allowed to encounter. Slowly, they begin to look identical. Not because the person became their digital twin, but because the digital twin became a blueprint, and the person followed it. Here is the most disturbing version of this idea. The algorithm doesn't just reflect who you are. Over time, it decides who you become. And if that's true, then the question of free will isn't philosophical anymore. It's urgent. Free will is one of the oldest arguments in human history. Philosophers have spent centuries on a question that still has no clean resolution. Are the choices you make genuinely yours? Or are they the inevitable product of everything that shaped you? Your genetics, your environment, your history. Running forward like a calculation that was always going to produce this exact result. For most of that history, it was impossible to measure. Then behavioral data arrived, and the argument changed. Because now we can test it. Not philosophically, empirically. In 2023, researchers at Columbia University built a model that could predict a person's consumer decisions, which product they'd choose between two options, with 73% accuracy, before they chose. 73% doesn't sound like free will under threat, but consider what 73% actually means. For nearly 3 out of every 4 decisions you believe you're making freely, a machine, working from your data, already had the answer. Now, a fair counter-argument exists here. Predicting a choice doesn't mean the choice isn't free. Weather forecasts predict rain, that doesn't mean rain was forced. The prediction describes the outcome, it doesn't cause it. This is where most people stop, where most videos stop. But the loop we just discussed makes that counter-argument collapse. Because the algorithm isn't just predicting your choices, it's constructing the environment in which you make them. It controls what you see before you decide. It controls which options feel available. It controls what feels normal, what feels desirable, what feels like the obvious choice. This isn't prediction anymore. This is architecture. The philosopher Daniel Dennett spent his career arguing that free will is compatible with a deterministic universe, that even if your choices are caused by prior conditions, they are still meaningfully yours if they reflect your values and reasoning. That argument assumes your values and reasoning developed independently. But what if the same system predicting your choices also shaped the values you're using to make them? That's not a thought experiment anymore. That's Tuesday. And it might still be survivable if it stayed in the realm of shopping recommendations and playlist curation. But it didn't stay there. Because someone figured out that the same system that predicts what you'll buy can predict how you'll vote. And they used it. In 2016, a company called Cambridge Analytica harvested the psychological data of 87 million Facebook users without their knowledge. They built personality profiles using a model called OCEAN: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. 5 traits, scored from your digital behavior alone. Then they used those profiles to micro-target political messaging, delivering a different version of the same candidate to each personality type. To the highly neurotic, they emphasized threat and instability. To the highly conscientious, they emphasized order and tradition. To the open and curious, they emphasized change and possibility. Same candidate, same election. 5 different psychological levers, each one pulled with precision. The people receiving these messages believed they were forming opinions, drawing conclusions from evidence, exercising their judgment as free citizens in a democracy. They were. They just didn't know which evidence had been chosen for them and why. That's the difference between persuasion and manipulation. Persuasion shows you an argument. Manipulation designs the room you're standing in when you hear it. Cambridge Analytica collapsed. The scandal broke publicly. Investigations were launched. And most people filed it away as a cautionary tale, something that happened once, got caught, got stopped. But the methodology didn't stop. The tools just got better and quieter. Today, political micro-targeting operates across every major platform, not just Facebook. YouTube's recommendation algorithm has been documented by researchers at Dartmouth and MIT to progressively serve more extreme political content, regardless of starting position, because extreme content generates more engagement. More engagement, more watch time, more ad revenue. The platform isn't trying to radicalize anyone. It's just following the data. And the data says, outrage keeps people watching. And advertising isn't immune either. The same personality profiling used in political targeting is used every day by consumer brands, not to sell you products, to sell you an identity. They don't advertise a car. They advertise the version of you that drives that car. They don't sell a skincare product. They sell the insecurity they already know you carry, and then offer the solution.
They know which self-image you feel most uncertain about because you told them. Not in words, in pauses, in returns, in searches you made at 2 a.m. that you thought no one would ever see. Your digital twin carries every insecurity you've ever expressed digitally. And the people who own that model are not on your side. So where does that leave you? In a system this embedded, this precise, this invisible, is there anything that actually changes it? Yes, but not in the way most people think. Because the goal isn't to destroy the machine. It's to understand it well enough that it loses its grip on you. And that starts with something very simple that almost nobody does.
Let's be honest about where we are. You cannot delete your digital twin. It already exists. It's already being updated, and the systems running it have no obligation to stop. That's the reality. But here's what those systems don't want you to understand. A model is only as accurate as the behavior that feeds it. And behavior, unlike your past, can change today. Not dramatically, not performatively, just deliberately. The first thing you can do is introduce friction. Not into your whole life, just into your patterns. Vary your routines deliberately. Take a different route. Search for things that have nothing to do with your life. Buy something random. Pause where you'd normally scroll past. Keep scrolling where you'd normally stop. These aren't paranoid behaviors. They're the digital equivalent of changing your handwriting. The model expects consistency. Give it noise instead. The second thing, separate your intentions from your devices. The most revealing data you generate isn't your purchases, it's your hesitations. What you searched and deleted, what you hovered over and didn't buy, what you almost said in a message you rewrote. Make important decisions before you open your phone, not after. The algorithm cannot predict a thought that never became a signal. Third, read across your own edges. The recommendation engine narrows you over time by giving you more of what you already are. The single most disruptive thing you can do to that system is genuine curiosity about what it would never show you. Not to change who you are, to remind yourself that who you are is larger than your data profile. And fourth, perhaps the most important, understand that awareness is not passive. The moment you see the loop, you are no longer fully inside it. Not because knowledge magically breaks the algorithm, but because a mind that understands how it's being shaped makes different choices than one that doesn't. That difference is small, but it is yours. Here is what this video was really about. Not surveillance, not privacy settings, not algorithms. It was about the oldest question human beings have ever asked. Am I the author of my life? Or am I a story someone else is writing? The answer, now more than ever, depends not on the machine. It depends on whether you're paying attention. If this video made you stop, even for a moment, and look at your own patterns differently, then drop a comment below. Tell me, has an algorithm ever known you too well? A recommendation that felt less like a suggestion and more like it was reading your mind? I want to know, because the next video goes somewhere even deeper. Subscribe if you want to be there when that answer arrives. And until then, pay attention.